Hi, and welcome back to Begin Again. We're going to edit that one. Hi, and welcome back to Begin Again, where we support each other in all changing seasons of life. I'm your host, Evie, and today we have a phenomenal guest, Eric Greitens, and I am so excited to share his story today, for him to come on and really give us some tips and tools as to what it looked like for life for him. Eric was a former Navy SEAL, former governor of Missouri, has just made such big impact in the world of service, and is still continuing to show up in such beautiful ways. And so I just thank you so much for coming on, Eric.
Well, Evie, it is great to be on with you. Thank you for having me. It's fun to be on Begin Again with you, and I look forward to our conversation. Absolutely.
I am so
Really
excited.
admire what you're doing with the show, helping everybody, inspiring people to find ways to embrace their next chapter.
Yeah, and I think that that's what's most important, is because there's just so much clout, there's so much of a veil, I think, whenever it comes to what we think of success, whenever we come to think of what it is to actually achieve something, and the reality of what that really looks like. And for you, I mean, you have just gone through it all. I mean, you're a man of many trades. There was a Renaissance woman, but you're a Renaissance man. And so it's just really beautiful. I've been so curious too, because what was it that really inspired you in the very beginning? Like, where was it that you started in your childhood? I'm curious about where it was that you were brought up. Like, how was your family upbringing? Really, what was instilled in you in that way that motivated you to get to that, or if it was just naturally something that came from you?
Yeah. So I was born and raised in St. Louis, Missouri. My mom was a preschool teacher. She was actually an early childhood special education teacher, so she worked with kids who had special needs. My dad was an accountant for the government, for the Department of Agriculture. But my dad's real job was that he was a great dad. My paternal grandfather, his dad, had died when my dad was 6 years old. So my dad grew up without a dad, and I think he always really wanted to be a great dad, and he did. He achieved that. I've got two younger brothers, and so when I think about my dad, and people, well, what did he do? Like he was a great dad. He was our coach. He was our dad. He was fantastic. And
All boys team.
Yeah,
Huh?
all
boys team.
Yes, and now I have two boys, so he is now Poppy to them, to my nephew. So, but I think that I was really blessed to grow up in a home with a tremendous amount of love. And I remember as a kid, you never know like what actually sparks a kid's different interest in things. I do remember seeing my grandfather, my dad's Navy portrait hung over my dad's dresser my whole life growing up.
So it was like something that was kind of in your vicinity, in your mind.
Yeah, it was there. It was like I knew that he was in the Navy in World War II. He was actually on the aircraft carrier, the USS Enterprise, when Pearl Harbor was struck, which you may know was the only aircraft carrier which was actually out to sea when Pearl Harbor happened. So I think I always had that maybe early Navy sensibility. But then as a kid, for some reason, I just really got into the Choose Your Own Adventure books.
Okay, so
And I was reading Choose Your Own Adventure all the time.
That's actually funny. You remind me of like the modern day of that is a Netflix one where you can pick.
Right? No, I've done some of those with my boys, but they're not as good as the books. They're not as good as the books. No, the books are far, far superior. And so I think that I always had this sense, and growing up, I actually remember having a sense, I felt like I was born at the wrong time.
What area would have been born if you?
Well, I just, as a kid, you grew up and you're like reading about Julius Caesar and Alexander the Great and, the Battle of Thermopylae. And then,
So you're like a gladiator.
I'm at McKelvey Elementary School, home of the dragons, super sweet. And there's, and then
that was your past life, probably.
Yeah, well, perhaps, yeah. And then, you'd go to the library and you'd be reading. And I just, in that very safe kind of suburban library, whether I was reading about the American Revolution or the people who settled the West or Thermopylae, whatever it was, I just had this sense that I wanted to adventure.
And that's such a good place to be because it sparks curiosity. I think you are very brave. And I think that in that way, it takes a brave person to choose different options and kind of just explore what's out there and not play it safe.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I'll just a note on bravery and courage. I think that one of the insights I've come to is that courage is really rooted in love. And courage actually has its root comes from coeur, from the French word for heart. And so courage is really rooted in love. And I actually believe that there's really only two main emotions in life. There's love and there's fear. And courage is the manifestation of love in action in the face of fear.
Wow.
And so I think I was very fortunate that there were things that I loved and I felt loved, and that also enabled you to take risks.
Yes. It's almost like you don't even think about it, right? Like it's more of an instinct where you just, it's funny. I was at a Bible study yesterday and I realized that I would go to war for my family. Like I would go to war. And like I even told one of my friends, it's like, I just love these people so much.
Yes.
And I would do anything to protect them and I would go to war for them.
Yes.
And it was funny because I hadn't really had that revelation, but whenever you said that, it's like, yeah, because I do love them. And I would put myself in between them in harm's way.
Yeah.
Immediately without even thinking about it.
Yeah.
And so that's a really beautiful insight. I think that fear is also sometimes kind of can be rooted in love in the manner in which like a fear of losing love.
Yes,
or
of
fear
course.
The lack of scarcity and things of that sort.
Yes,
not necessarily
absolutely.
But yeah, that's a really good perspective. And so you've carried that throughout your life, it seems.
I've certainly tried to. Look, I mean, sometimes,
like we're imperfect people.
Yeah, we're imperfect people, and sometimes the fear wins, sometimes the love wins. But I do think that having that awareness is very helpful.
Yeah.
Because it often can ground you in saying, what do I love, and who do I love, and how do I want to show up in the world.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's
the most important question. How do I want to show up? How do I want to show up? And so for you, you're in your family home, and did you leave around college? Was that kind of was it traditional style?
So I went to college, and I was very fortunate. I went to Duke University in North Carolina, and they had a program. I had a couple of amazing adventures there, which really set me up for the rest of my life.
All those college adventures,
yeah,
for sure.
Well, one of them was that they had a program where if you were a freshman who'd never been outside of the country, you could apply for a grant to travel in the summer after your freshman year. Now, this was 1993. I had never been outside of the country before. I had an uncle who you actually met very briefly, Uncle Don, who had been to China. And he'd been to China for work with his broom business. So being a kid who'd never been outside of the country, I literally, like St. Louis, Missouri, if you put your finger on the other side of the globe, it's China. And I thought, well, if I'm going to go, I'm going to try and go as far as I can. Direction. Yeah. And so literally halfway around the world. So I put together a grant, and long story short, I got a grant to study joint ventures and political economy in China in 1993. Now, people, when they think of China now, it's changed so much. Back in 1993, we were still bicycling around Beijing. I remind everybody, there were, of course, no cell phones, but there were also no ATMs. You traveled with traveler's checks. When I went to places like Changchun, China, I was the only foreigner I saw the entire time that I was there. So it was a very different
no translations.
No.
Nobody's really speaking the language.
There's no good.
I hope that you had the basics down.
Well, I was very fortunate that they had arranged a translator for me, and so. But it was really an opportunity for me to kind of learn how to navigate the world, and I ended up having this wild adventure. If I told you the whole story, we'd spend the whole time talking about this crazy 19-year-old adventure in China.
We'll have to come back and then just do one specific.
We'll just do what we can do. Come back and do different episodes for different adventures. But the highlights are that I ended up losing all of my money in Changchun. arrived in Beijing without a job, ended up getting, without any money, ended up getting a job in a Chinese-owned company.
That must have been scary.
Was told to teach English, taught English and quickly learned that the students, most of them who were about 27-ish years old, had all been at Tiananmen Square in 1989.
Wow.
They were asking me questions about freedom of speech, about the Constitution. And then after a week of teaching, I was arrested on Friday night.
Okay.
And so anyway, it's a crazy, wild story, but the point is that, that really gave me a sense for how different the world could be overseas, and also a sense for the magic of America. It also gave me a sense for my own desire to explore the world, to make a difference. And so I ended up, when I was in college, the next summer, I went to work with Bosnian refugees in Croatia. The summer after that, I worked with Rwandan refugees in Zaire. The summer after I graduated, I worked with street children in Bolivia. And I ended up continuing this as in graduate school. I studied how international humanitarian organizations work with kids in war zones.
Wow.
And so I worked in one of Mother Teresa's homes for the destitute and dying, worked in an orphanage in Albania, was in Chiapas, Mexico, was in the Gaza Strip. And so
that was an incredibly impactful trip. The China trip is just a very...
The China trip really opened
domino
my
effect.
sensibility to what was out there. And I'm so grateful for that opportunity.
It seems like it gave you a lot of perspective that we might not have otherwise had. And I mean, for you to have gone through an arrest and actually be somebody who was experiencing that firsthand, it's one thing to witness it and to actually view it and say, oh, I have compassion for these people, but to actually go through it and realize how quickly things can escalate outside of your control, and then be somebody who advocates for that afterwards is really quite beautiful. That you use that as the fuel to really motivate you going forward.
I did, and I would say to all of your listeners, I know you always you do such a good job of inspiring people to think about their own lives. And one of the things that I think is different now, and it's important for us to recognize this, is that because of the prevalence of social media, because people can quickly look at videos, because people can quickly read on Wikipedia, because all of this information and the videos are so, like, they're literally in your hand, I think that a lot of people have forgotten or lost a sense for the true value of really embodied experience.
Yeah, and then it's kind of a disconnect because you don't have the visceral thing. Liz, edit this out. Sorry, I've been holding that in for 1 second.
Take your time.
The allergies just got me, and the microphone is completely covered in pollen. Oh. And so it sounds as though when it comes to our phones being disconnected, it kind of reminds me of being in Costa Rica. And when I was in Costa Rica, I was next to this enormous waterfall. And I dove into the waterfall, and I don't panic. I'm not somebody who easily feels overwhelmed, but the current was so strong that for the first time in my entire life, I was starting to panic, and I had to take a deep breath, get out of the water. But it made me have reverence for this waterfall, because I realized like how fragile we actually are, and just one wrong slip. But without that feeling, like your heart is pumping, you feel the water on your skin, you see the roaring water, it's overwhelming almost. And then to have that experience, the visceral experience, like how you said, and the embodiment of that, and not just have it, oh, well, I'm viewing this waterfall through a phone, it's an entirely different experience.
100%. And I also think that what you just mentioned is also important. The experience of fear.
Yeah.
Right? We were talking before about fear and love, and unfortunately, so many people live today without the experience of fear.
To revere and to respect and to really know our place in that world, because I remember looking at the waterfall and thinking, like, I heard God say, "Be strong and courageous," and I took a deep breath and I dove back in.
Yes.
And I was like, all right, let's go, because like I don't even know what's underneath the water, but this is where we're at, and this is how we're going to get through it, and to really fight through that fear and still come out on the other side. It's It's a choice.
It's really a powerful choice. And the other thing that was very important in my college years was that I also started boxing. My maternal grandfather had boxed in Chicago in the Great Depression. And so I had always heard these stories about boxing growing up. And then when I was in college, I had this wonderful education where I'd kind of be studying Aristotle on campus. And then every afternoon, I would drive down to the gym in the city. And I was the only white guy there, the only college student. And I learned how to box. And I also learned a lot about fear. I learned a lot about courage. I learned a lot about self-regulation. I learned a lot about how you actually embody power.
To like stay composed in it.
Yeah. And how do you when somebody's really a very strong, capable person is throwing punches at you, right? And to learn how to stay calm.
And know where you're going to put your next land, right?
Yes,
Not let that last blow hit you.
And be very thoughtful, and to let things glance off you. There are obviously thousands of lessons there.
That's actually so beautifully put. Especially when you have that last hit, you can't focus on the last hit, because if you're just stuck in that last hit, you're going to get knocked out. Like, you have to let it kind of go by.
Yes.
And from what I know of your life, like, that just sounds like your personality entirely.
Yeah. Well, look, you're going to take some blows, but if you're going to do big things, and this is what I would say, is that, this was true about China. It was true about working with, I was working in Bosnia with kids who lost their parents during the ethnic cleansing in Bosnia. It's hard. It was difficult. Boxing is difficult. The trip to China was difficult. But in embracing all of the hardship and in all of the fear, that's where all of the magic was.
Yeah.
That's where all of the growth was. That's where all of my great stories come from those things when I really pushed and did things that were beyond my present capability.
Yeah.
And that's how you grow. That's how you become a new person, is by putting yourself in an environment where the nature of the challenge is going to require you to become a new person.
I love that. And it's one of those, like, get out of your comfort zone, which I think is a cliche, but it's also, I would encourage you who are listening right now, to really look at your life right now and truly look in the mirror and ask yourself, what limiting beliefs are you placing on yourself? And what are those limits that you think are actually impossible, but it's not quite impossible as much as it is a choice to not pursue it? Because everything is possible. It's been, very evident that anything that we really put our minds to, we can achieve, we can move forward to. And so I encourage you listeners to really just question, like, what limiting beliefs are running your life right now? And to ask yourself, is that the truth? And how might I be able to overcome that? And if it might be hard, it might be challenging, but it is a choice. And on the other side of that choice is so much growth, so much adventure, so much perspective, so much courage, so much things that can really have a bigger impact in the world than, just playing in our comfort zone, which is great too. It's great to just pause and be able to sit back and know that we have a safety zone, and that's okay. At the same time, like, to live your entire life like that, we never really get a chance to truly experience what it has to offer. And so that's just what I love about your story, is like, you went for it and you've seen the world, you've made huge impact in children's lives, you've really changed a lot of generations, I'm sure. Like, the work that you did, especially with those children who didn't have parents around, just having a male role model in that moment probably meant a lot to them. And that, that they had somebody in their corner, even somebody who was from the other side of the world, that cared for them in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, it is. It's really powerful to see what one person can do for another. And it doesn't have to be in a refugee crisis. It doesn't have to be in one of Mother Teresa's homes so students are dying. It can actually be in your present life.
Yeah,
right now.
Locally.
Yes.
We can do that in our own community. We can do that in our workplace. We can do that driving in traffic and having the courage not to
you
flip
could do it
somebody else off.
as hard as it might sound. Sometimes you can do it with your family.
Yeah.
You can do it with your friends.
You can do it with yourself.
You have that power.
Yeah.
And to your point, I think one thing that's really important about courage to remember is that courage, like every virtue, is a habit. And people who are courageous, it doesn't mean that they don't succumb to fear sometimes. It just means that most of the time they find a way to beat the
It's kind of
fear.
like a get back up situation, you know, and it's not necessarily that you're not going to fall off the horse. It's not going to be the fact that you're not going to fall off the bike. It's that you get back on.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And you don't let it defeat you. And like, okay, there's a flat tire. So how are we going to fix this? All right. The horse doesn't move. Right. Like, so it's more of a problem solving situation when it comes to that point. Right.
Yes.
And how do we actually overcome that? And that is why this show is so important to me on This Begin Again, is to give you the resources to power through, give you inspiration, give you hope that not only is it possible, but there are people who want to mentor you, who want to pour into you, who want to provide support and safety. And we have resources around us. It's been done before. If you want to have something in your life, it's yours. And I just think that's beautiful. And so whenever you transitioned from your, you know, your outreach with the children, what stimulated you to go into your Navy career? Because that is a very big jump.
Yeah, so a lot of people thought of it as a big jump from doing humanitarian work to being a Navy SEAL.
I mean, that is quite literally, it just seems like an opposite.
Yes, it seems like that. Though, to pick up on your point of the courage, one of the things that's very interesting is that the humanitarian volunteers who'd flown to Rwanda after a genocide and were working in refugee camps where there was cholera had a lot more in common with Navy SEALs than people who spent their days watching TV. And so they were expressing their courage in different ways, right? Some as humanitarians, others as warriors, but there's still the root sensibility that they were willing to do really hard things. They were actually much more similar than people who might have been apathetic or weren't as engaged, which was interesting. But part of the reason why I joined the SEAL teams was because of my experience in Bosnia, my experience in Rwanda during the ethnic cleansing, during the genocide. Growing up, having studied the Holocaust, having been influenced by that, I saw that if you really want to help people, then compassion is part of the equation. But there also has to be courage. You also have to be willing to protect people. That's also part of the equation. It's not just helping people after they've been hurt. It's actually protecting them from being hurt. That's part of, I think, a man's job.
I was going to say, showing up as a man. And so it's interesting that you say that, because I'm like, as you were saying that, my brain went, we just need more men in the world, like more men who want to stand up and actually protect, and not out of like just fighting to fight, right? But to actually protect and say like, no, I've got this, and I'm gonna stand firm.
And I'm gonna play a role in the world as a warrior. I'm gonna play the role in the world as a protector. Now, it's also true, I was 26 by the time I'd finished my dissertation, got that all turned in, et cetera. The cutoff age for the SEAL teams was 28. So one of the things that motivated me was I felt like, gosh, I really want to do this in my life, and if I'm going to do it, I got to do it now. And the other thing was I was 26, but I still had my childhood desires to jump out of planes and to blow things up, right? And to do all these things.
Just not to know what the world wasn't about yet.
Exactly, yes. Yeah.
I hadn't beat it out of you quite yet.
No, I still had all of those ideas. So.
That's hilarious. And I still want to jump out of planes. And so I don't think that really changes. As you age, it's more of like a spirit.
Yes.
You have a spirit of adventure.
It's true. It doesn't change if you keep it alive. But a lot of people don't.
Sometimes life situations can definitely dampen that light in a lot of people.
And that's okay if you're listening to this and that the light has been dampened, it has been lost, just remember it can be recovered.
It can. And even if it's from a spark, just a small spark.
It's so funny you said spark. I was about to say embers.
Yeah.
The tiniest little spark, the tiniest little ember, if you nurture that, and you nurture it not just in your mind, but you nurture it in your practice, you nurture it in what you do, then yes, you can get back.
Yeah, it's like a...
But life will, look, if you live a full life, life's going to try to dampen that out of you.
Yeah.
Life is going to try to oftentimes, especially people who are willing to take adventures, especially people who are willing to take risks, life will sometimes turn, and other people can.
And there are people who have who can witness you in your adventure, who don't feel that bravery, and it sparks an insecurity in them.
Yes.
And then what's the flame that's burning in them is insecurity, which then becomes their motivation to dampen your light. And so not allowing those people who might not know themselves well enough or have the confidence to pursue what you're pursuing doesn't mean that what you're pursuing is wrong. It just means that it's not for everyone.
Yeah, look, I said this to somebody just the other day. I said, anything great will inspire hate. And unfortunately, if you just have tremendous joy, a lot of times people who are struggling to find joy, instead of looking at that as an inspiration, they will cast negativity towards it.
And being grateful for that, right?
Yeah.
Being not even just grateful for the situation that you're going through, but grateful for the person who's challenging you to become smaller, because sometimes it's almost a motivator to be like,
Right.
you're trying to hold me down, like, let's see. And then like being able to power through that.
Right.
Energy is energy, right? And like, regardless of if it's negative energy or positive energy, we can still use that as fuel.
Yeah.
We can still use that as a power to go after our goals even harder. But it is always coming down to a choice.
Yes.
That is the most important thing. And I feel like your choices have just been such a mirror to that truth. And I like the Bible verses like fan into flame, because it doesn't always start as a flame. It's not a roaring forest.
Right.
It's sometimes very small and very quiet. And like you said, as you nurture it, as you step into your truth, it starts to actually build inside of you to where the fire around you is no longer a threat, because the fire inside of you, it burns so much brighter than anything that can touch you.
100%.
You know, and so it's just like a really beautiful thing to see that this has been cultivated in you and being able to pass on to these young generation. I have a son. Eric also has 2 sons. And so to be able to pour that into them and like create more men of courage and like really say, okay, this is what masculines do.
No, look, it's an opportunity that we have literally every day. And it's one of the great things about being a dad is that you see, you know, I just had, it's been incredible. I just did spring break with the boys, and then this last weekend they had off on Monday, so we had all day together from, you know, Friday afternoon until just this morning, Tuesday morning, to drop them off at school. You know, they're doing sleepovers with their friends and playing soccer and having adventures, and every moment that you're with them is an opportunity to be an example and to have fun.
Yeah, and let them have their childhood too, right?
Of
it's not like
course,
super serious. I mean,
no, you don't need
you'd
to,
think
like,
with Navy SEAL dads, that's like, but it is your humanitarian side. You have a very big balance to it.
I believe that I might have the claim to being the goofiest dad on the planet, so it's definitely not all serious.
Yeah, you have a good balance. I think you've seen enough of the world to know what to take seriously.
Yeah, well, you got to have fun.
Yeah.
And you have to have a sense of humor. And I'll tell you, sense of humor is actually probably one of the most underrated qualities for resilience. I often tell people, they would ask me about Navy SEAL training, and they're like, did you know who was going to make it through? And I will tell you, I was wrong when I showed up. Like, I saw some of these guys look like incredible athletes who were absolutely, you know, studs, and they crumbled. There were other guys who were on the runs and they were puking and having trouble and they were struggling, and they ended up making it. And all sorts of different people make it through. One of the near universal qualities, and it's not a universal quality, not everybody has this, but one of the near universal qualities of everybody who makes it through is that they have a good sense of humor.
Yeah.
So if you're going to go through all of that hell, you better be able to find a way to have fun.
In the military, that's really common. It's just like, it's kind of sometimes like a dark humor too. Yeah.
Whatever humor you can get.
Yeah. And I mean, but it does. It's like it lights up your brain. It lights up your soul. It lights up your heart, and it makes it to where the thing that you think is serious doesn't have power over you. It mitigates it in a way, and we're just like, nope, that's handleable. I can handle that.
Yes.
And 100%. I love that concept because it is. And when it comes to that humor, I know that for myself, had you met me like 10 years ago, I was not a humorous person. I was very, very confused. I was very angry. And I had a friend who was incredibly humorous. I mean, she would make me pee my pants laughing. It was the most embarrassing because I was an adult. And she was so hilarious. And it made me miss that. It made me miss that lightness in my heart that like it made me realize like this is a choice. And so what would you say to those who are just kind of like in that space right now? Like what would be your tip to them to kind of like remember it's not all that serious?
I think that first, I want to just share compassion with them that it's hard.
Yeah.
Like when you're in a dark place, and I've been there, and we can talk about that later, like it's really hard. And there are times when you feel like you're never going to laugh again.
Yeah.
And that is a really, really hard place to be. So if someone's listening to this and they're in that place, first, I just want to express compassion for them because that is a really, really tough place to be.
Yeah.
And I think the other piece of this is that so much of the advice that's given to people who are in tough places tends to be head advice. Like, think this, don't think that, think that. And like the problem...
Think positive thoughts.
Yeah, the problem for most... And there's good advice, but the problem for most people is that when they're in that place, the head is usually not the answer to how they're going to get out. The answer is usually in the body and in their physicality. And it's especially true when I work with men who are wounded and disabled veterans, when I work with guys, like, and I tell them, you will feel differently after you do 20 push-ups. So do 20 push-ups.
Yes. Oh man, that's such a good point. When I was going through that, like working out, I was so strong because I put so much emotion into the workout, and people would say, "Why are you so strong?" And I would just be like, "Stress," because I was putting a lot of that.
Your body was trying to move through it, and so
yes.
you can use that energy, use it in a positive way. And what you're doing when you do 20 push-ups, what you're doing when you go for a walk, what you're doing when you eat good food, what you're doing when you do these positive things for your body is you're literally changing your body's chemistry.
Yeah.
And that can enable you to have different thoughts, because the real battle for people is usually not external. The real battle is taking place inside their own head.
I love that you brought that up. I often say it doesn't matter what car you have. It doesn't matter what house you live in. It doesn't matter what job you have. You could be a billionaire and still be struggling inside. And I know suicidal billionaires. And it's not because their life is in any way tough. It is because their internal world is not bright.
Miserable.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it has everything to do with internal than it does more external.
100%.
And then their internal affects your external.
Yes.
Whenever you're able to care for yourself and you start showing up for yourself in those ways, taking a walk, eating well, just taking a shower, cleaning your sheets, right? Like it shows your mind and your soul, like I'm worthy of care. I'm worthy of this.
Well, what's really happening, so let's go to the love, courage piece, because I think it's actually really, really important. The hardest thing for people is not dealing with hatred outside of themselves. The hardest thing for people is when they are hating themselves.
Yeah. Yep.
That is incredibly destructive. If you have
self-punishment,
if you're grounded and you believe in yourself and you believe in your mission and you believe in your purpose, you can deal with almost any external obstacle. When a man or woman turns on themselves, that's really bad. That's where the really dangerous things happen. So, to your point, I think that what you're expressing when you decide to take care of yourself, when you decide to work out, when you decide to eat something healthy, when you decide to make a good choice for your health, you're expressing some self-love.
Oh, yeah.
And by doing that, that's really the path out.
I think that's a phenomenal point. Because, yeah, I remember hitting a point in my life, reflectively, is that, like, I realized it's not that other people didn't like me. It was that I didn't like me.
Right.
And so it really didn't matter where other people were at. It was like,
Yes.
I don't care. I just, like, other people could have thought the world of me,
Yes.
but I didn't like me.
Yeah, and if that's not there, you see a lot of people who are extraordinarily wealthy or famous or have achievements, and the internal
Yeah.
world is an absolute
There's a lot of self-punishment going on, and but it's possible to
yeah.
get out of. We have
Yes,
both walked that
yes,
walk. We have
yes,
both, been through the
right,
darkness and made it on the other side with that
yes,
small spark.
and and this it's hard to hear this sometimes when you're in the pain, but the pain does offer tremendous wisdom.
Yes, great. Like very, very grateful for the perspective. It allows you to have compassion for others, to
Mm-hmm.
you empathize with theirs as well. And had we not gone through those experiences, somebody might say, "Oh, I'm depressed" or something, and it's just like, "Oh, okay, like deal with
Mm-hmm.
it. Be happy, like just stop feeling sad." And it's like it doesn't work like that.
Right. Right.
And to go through it and actually go into that darkness with them, I think it's allowed us to have an ability and the capacity. It just increased my capacity and your
Yes.
capacity to
Right.
sit with somebody in it.
Mm-hmm.
That it's not a scary thing, and it's not something that is going to harm us in any way, shape, or
Mm-hmm.
form. But that we can at the very least just sit and like say, hey, like we'll just get through this together. It's not going to scare me. Like there's nothing that you can do or not do like that's
Yeah.
going to be dangerous.
Yeah.
It's just simply like this is where we're at, and it allows you to really have that capacity to hold from not only for yourself but for others as well. Like
Yeah. There's an energetic difference that people sense when they know that somebody else has walked through hell.
mm-hmm.
And if you've and it's so striking because when you're with people who've done that, you often don't need them to say anything.
Yeah.
Simply being around them and being with and around the energy of people who've walked through that kind of hell that you might be going through or that's similar brings a tremendous amount of confidence and clarity and hope to people. And I think we live in a culture of, quote, healing, where a lot of times there isn't actual healing that's done. And a lot of that is rooted in talking.
Oh
And
gosh, talk therapy.
talking can be helpful. And again, I don't want to dismiss, I've written lots of books because like ideas are important,
Yes.
okay? The ideas can be helpful. The thoughts can be helpful. What you embody
Yes.
is more important.
I think a lot of us know what we should be doing. A lot of us know
That's never
we should
the
be eating a
problem.
dinner. It's not necessarily about knowing the information. Like you said, it's about embodying it.
Yes.
And when it comes to talk therapy, what I have found is that it can be incredibly helpful to come to somebody and say, hey, this is the situation that I'm going through.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, it can cause that person to continue reliving the situation without actually making any progress on like how to
Yeah.
heal it, more so than just like, this is the problem.
I think one of the reasons why there's such a massive growth in the coaching industry is because good coaches are really helping people take action. Whereas a lot of the old idea of the kind of psychologist was about people talking through things with the intention, of course, that the psychologist was intending for people to get better. But the whole model, in the same way that we have a kind of sick care, healthcare model, which actually keeps people sick and
I think
makes
everything really needs
people
to be turned on its head at this
sick.
point,
Yes.
to be truthful.
The same thing is often true with the, quote, mental health model. It's like actually anybody who's worked with people who have any kind of mental health challenges know that it's more than mental. And so,
Because it lives in your body. It lives,
Yes.
on a cellular level.
yes.
And like somebody touching your shoulder, it doesn't have anything to do with your brain. You're not thinking somebody is touching my shoulder, but you have maybe a jerk reaction or a loving reaction, right? But it's not your brain thinking like, oh, this is happening.
Right.
It's your body experiencing this in this
Yes.
world.
Yes.
And so I think that that's a really good point to make, because talk therapy can be incredibly useful. Getting it out, moving, taking a walk, eating well, getting in the shower, just showing yourself that you are worthy of care and worthy of love are just very small few steps to do that. And sometimes you don't even need to talk therapy, having a journal, right? And really getting your thoughts out to where they live somewhere else other than your brain and the hamster wheel that we continually cycle through. and breaking that vicious cycle sometimes just is a matter of like accepting where we are in this current moment and not even trying to change it.
Yeah.
Just simply accepting like these are the circumstances.
Yeah.
And then going from there to the next step.
Yeah. I'm going to say something that's very controversial,
Do
maybe.
it.
But a lot of people have been given the false idea that like they have to say everything. And it's interesting to think about where these ideas come from. So one of the very important kind of meta ideas in life is to understand that we often use analogies to objects and inventions outside of ourselves to understand ourselves. When Freud was doing all of his kind of work in psychology, one of the dominant inventions that was changing the world was the steam engine, right? And locomotives. And you all of a sudden the whole world was powered. This, and you think about like the incredible change that happened from moving from horses to engines to locomotives. All of these things had changed the world tremendously. And the idea of the psychological idea was you're building up all of this pressure inside of somebody, so you have to like off-gas it. And I actually heard this was someone else's idea I heard recently, but like you don't actually need to do that. And if you think about what you do as a mom or what I do as a dad, like every time that your kids upset you, you don't tell them about it. You don't need to express yourself. And the truth is like the things that have happened, sometimes it is very helpful to come to an understanding of them so that you can move through them. Sometimes it's very helpful to integrate them in a way that leads you higher. But the idea that we have to like go back and fix or deal with every single thing that was wrong. In fact, oftentimes doesn't mean that we ignore things that are truly bad. But the solution often is not in actually going back and fixing what was wrong. I often talk about, and excuse me, I know I'm mixing a couple of thoughts.
No, I think that's beautiful because it is sometimes we focus too much on the past, on how to fix it.
Or the problems.
Yes.
One of the things that I noticed, I remember having this insight. I was working with kids in Cambodia who'd lost limbs to landmines. And if you think about a girl in Cambodia who's lost a limb to a landmine, who's growing up in a culture in which every person in her family, in her community, makes less than $1 per day. She's growing up in a culture where girls were sometimes undervalued and the disabled are viewed as a burden. And you think about like, how am I going to solve all of these problems? Like, you're not. You're not going to solve all of them. And so sometimes what you need to do is you drown what's wrong in a sea of what's right. And the same thing can be true for an individual. Rather than focusing on all of the problems, I worked with, we could talk about this later in the story, I worked with wounded and disabled veterans, right? Instead of focusing on, the traumatic brain injury and his wife left him and now he's depressed and now he's taking drugs and now this and now this. Like, if you're going to try to solve all of those problems at once, you're in a lot of trouble. What we did instead was we put wounded and disabled veterans back to work at Habitat for Humanity, at a Big Brothers Big Sisters, at a Boys and Girls Club. So we started to build on what was right. We started to build a sense of purpose. And then guess what? If somebody has a sense of purpose, they have a sense of value, they have a sense of self-worth, they want to take care of themselves.
Purpose is everything.
Yes.
Is everything. I think actually of all the things that we need to do to get out of the darkness is find a purpose.
Yes.
That's it.
Yes.
That's it. And begin again. That's it.
Yes.
Like, focus on the purpose,
Yes.
begin again, and choose to just keep on focusing on the
Yes.
purpose, because you can. You choose to focus on the problem or you choose to focus on the purpose that the
Yes.
problem brought you,
Right.
right? Like,
Right.
just as much as whenever you went and got arrested, that was the problem.
Right.
Governor.
Yes. Yes.
and
Right.
and then, you focused on the purpose that
Right.
brought you to. And so it's fuel.
Yes.
I think that's beautiful. And I think that's probably the nail on the head is purpose, right?
That's right. That's right. If a man doesn't have a purpose,
Or female.
Or
We're not just saying
Yes, yes.
people. We're saying women and children
Yes,
and
yes.
everybody. Like, we all need
a
a purpose.
man or a woman.
Yes.
If a person doesn't have a purpose, then everything else can be, quote, right, and it won't work. If they do have a purpose and they're deeply connected
In alignment with that
in
purpose.
alignment with that purpose, no matter what else is wrong,
Yeah.
they can find a path to joy.
I always like to think of integrity as well, because we can have a purpose and then be out of alignment within our integrity with it.
Right.
And then it can still, like, we can be like, well, I have a purpose, but I'm like, still not feeling right. It's because we're sometimes taking shortcuts or not doing it as best as we know we could, right? Like we're kind of shorting ourselves in that way of the experience of what it actually means to walk in full integrity of that purpose. And sometimes that means making hard choices. And that sometimes means that somebody might blackmail you for some kind of situation that you did or didn't do. And it's just like, wow, like why? Okay, but I'm still going to be in my integrity and still walk in my purpose.
Yes.
And then it really dissipates all of that power, because regardless of how somebody views you or doesn't, it allows you to just know yourself well. And as long as you know yourself well, I think that's everything. And knowing that your intentions are pure and that you are in alignment with your truth, that is the ultimate power. That's the ultimate power. And I feel like you very much embodied that. Like you've gone through a lot of situations whenever it comes to other people. I mean, politics is not an easy ground to do. Like they are literally ripping left and right trying to find the smallest little piece of dirt that they can in any way, shape, and form and blow it up into something that is like, this is the problem. It's like, or we're just a human being and we're imperfect people. And like, just because I'm a politician or a president or anything or a king doesn't make you a perfect person or a billionaire, right? Everybody still has those flaws. But whenever we, even ourselves as a society, put a microscope onto the flaw of the one little small thing that is not going right versus everything that is whenever we kind of, fall into ourselves.
Yeah, and I think that this is, I'll make kind of a meta point about what really matters is what you focus on. I'll use like an incredibly silly example from my morning, right? Which is that I was driving the boys to school and then I was driving to the gym. Okay. I hate commuting. And both drives, like traffic was awful, whatever. Right? And I had this moment where I was thinking like, oh God, no, I can't do the workout that I want to do, et cetera, et cetera. So and I just kind of caught myself and I was like, look, I have so much to be grateful.
Yes.
I just had this amazing weekend with the boys. I'm grateful for the fact that I have a morning where I get to go and do this workout, and then I get to come here and do this podcast. And I just took a moment to reframe and focus. But the reason I mention it is that it's important to recognize that what the news tries to do, what people try to do in politics, what a lot of people, the whole culture of negativity is built around getting you to focus on the negative.
Being a victim.
Focus on the problem and focus on being a victim rather than focus on the gratitude. And we should have compassion for people today because it's much, much harder.
Yeah.
I mean, the average person is looking at their phone for 4-ish hours a day, and it is designed to addict you. It is designed to keep you in fear.
And it's unfortunate too, because a lot of those who are in that, it's easy to point the finger when you're not actually doing the work. It's easy to say, this is how it should have been done. This is how it shouldn't have been done. This is how I would do it instead. And it's like, well, then do it.
Yes.
And if that's the case, if you know how to do it so well, then why aren't you?
Then just do it.
And the comment section on Instagram, I mean, I feel like, I love that you brought up like the STEAM, our industrial revolution, all of that, because this is very recent to our whole anatomy as humans, that we have technology. Like our brains were not really wired for that. We were wired to live in the forest. We were wired to go and hunt and gather. And so now in the last 100 years of thousands and thousands of years of us being humans, our brains are now trying to get on a path of understanding what it means to be witnessing something in front of us that's not actually in front of us. And what that fear can do to us in that moment, in that fight or flight, where it's actually not a threat to our physical environment this very minute. But it's so easy to just leave a comment. Oh, I can't believe that their like hair looked like this. And just like, bro, like what does that even matter? Because it's so much easier to be the one who points the finger than the person who's actually doing the work and is in front of the camera, right?
Yeah.
And I think that you have a quote that you you had reminded me of, it was a Teddy Roosevelt quote, "A man in the
Yes.
arena,"
Yes.
is now my son's favorite quote.
Oh, beautiful. Good. Yes.
Because there are
Yes.
times where it's like, you're going to be in the baseball field and there's going to be a bunch of people telling you what you should do,
Yes.
but you need to focus on coach and you need to focus on what you know how to do. And that's all you can do, right? Like,
Yeah, it's a great quotation. It's from Teddy Roosevelt. And for the people who are listening, it begins, "It is not the critic who counts, not the one who points out how the strong man stumbles or how the doer of deeds might have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred with sweat and dust and blood, who knows the great enthusiasms, the great devotions." And it goes on. But the point is that the credit in life goes to the people who are actually in the arena.
and it's something that no one can take away from you, because regardless of if they see the credit or not, you're just like, cool, dude. It's all good. Like, I like who I am. And then that's the true power, when you're just like, I like who I am.
Yeah,
And you're actually through that.
yeah, I think that's right, and I also think that to your other point, it's a wild world where people we've never met now regularly feel empowered to criticize in a personal way people they've never met.
Yes.
And so,
And it's easy behind a
and
phone. It's easy behind a steering wheel.
They do it behind the
right?
phone. They do it behind the steering wheel. And I think that,
This element of like separation.
yeah, there's been the change that's happened in human beings in the last, say, 15 years, where most people, I mean, you and I both have phones with us right now.
Mm-hmm.
Most people, most of their day are connected to a device
Yeah.
is incredibly strange and deeply unhealthy.
Yeah. And it's not, I mean, in some regards, it is our actual reality.
Mm-hmm.
But as much as if you were to stand next to a real waterfall
Right.
and
Right.
take a video of a waterfall, or stand
Right.
underneath the power of a waterfall and being taken under by the current,
Right.
versus looking and watching somebody do that,
Right.
it's an entirely different visceral experience in every way,
Yes.
shape, and form.
Yes.
It develops your brain. It uses different parts of your brain. It uses different parts of your body. Your blood pressure rises. Your entire body is like actually in that, versus this safety zone of being like this disconnection, this separation of like almost like being protected by the screen,
Yeah.
that isn't actually going to affect somebody on the other side.
Right.
And what's unfortunate too is because it's this almost like false danger, in a way that these words aren't actually arrows. They aren't actually knives.
Mm-hmm.
They aren't actually bullets,
Right.
but they can affect the psychology in the similar manner,
Yeah.
and really take somebody under. And it's like those sticks and stones can break my bones, the words will never hurt me.
Yeah.
We're not in that generation anymore.
Right.
And I mean, you have to choose to allow those words to give you power. But man, it's just when you're trying your best and then somebody's just trying to take you out, like even their words, like, because especially if you're a considerate person and you care and you want to know, like, how am I doing?
Mm-hmm.
And somebody who's not really doing that well, giving them too much of consideration can actually be unhealthy.
Yeah.
And I wish sometimes, because I stopped using social media for a good while, I postponed actually opening this business for a whole decade because of what I felt about social media. And it was just so unfortunate, because I think that for me, I wish it would be more like a book. When you're reading a book, you might have thoughts. You might say, I agree with that, or I don't agree with that. And you might even make a note in the margin. You might make a note in your mind, but you're not like stopping and you're like telling everybody exactly what your thoughts of these books, And a part of me is like, I almost want to turn off all the commenting things. Like, not that I've gotten harassed in those ways,
Sure.
but to really change the dynamic of being like, hey, like you said, not every thought has to be shared. And not only that, like, if this was a book, like, approach it like that. Approach it like you're reading a book. This is a novel of our lives. This is a photo journal in a sense. And the fact that somebody is even willing to share that is a gift.
Yeah.
Right? And like put themselves out there authentically and show up in some way is a gift. And to receive it in that way, because it is very hard. It takes a lot of courage to be
Mm-hmm.
out on social media right now, to have an opinion and stand firm on it, even if it's not something that other people agree with. It's just one of those that you're like, okay, like that takes a lot of courage to actually step up and put yourself out in front of
Mm-hmm.
the crowd and in the arena.
Yes, it does. It does. And it's also important to recognize that nothing great was ever created by people responding constantly to their critics. I mean, imagine if Michelangelo was trying to paint the Sistine Chapel and he had 100 people commenting the entire time. Oh, no, 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 no. His hand doesn't actually look like that. No, no, that bicep is off.
And a
No,
lot of
that
times they're,
shouldn't God be smiling bigger? I can't, that doesn't
yeah,
look like a smile.
a lot of times they're commenting too before the finished painting, right? And they
Sure.
can't really see where it's heading.
But again, the
It's
problem
true.
isn't the commenters are going to comment. I think that as creators, what we have, the opportunity that we have is to just remember that if we're connected and to our inspiration and we're bringing something that we think is beautiful out into the world, we have to do that regardless
And to
of,
be a leader, right? Like
yes,
I mean, in order to be a leader, you have to put yourself out.
yes.
And we need more leaders. We need more people, because at this point we're a lot of systems. I think a lot of systems. This is when you said I'm going to say something controversial. I'm like,
Yeah.
a lot of it is being challenged. And like we challenge New Year's resolutions. We challenge things of that sort. That is just something that we accept as a normal part of our society at this point. But it's like, but it's not working, and that's okay. But how are we going to improve it, right? And like we need leaders to challenge it. We need leaders to be the one who says, hey, I don't think that that's okay, because if nobody says it, that's how we end up in genocide. That's how we end up in places that nobody's standing up and actually speaking up for what is right. Because that fear of being judged, that fear of being criticized is making them small in a lot of ways. And I think that for you, I mean, I admire and I respect somebody who has been on the platform after your Navy SEAL career. I'm sure that was a transition from going into governorship. And what was that motivated you to go through it? Because that is a huge feat. To just be on social media is one thing, but to literally be in front of the public eye and be a leader as a governor and walk that walk.
Yeah, my when I left the active duty in the SEAL team, so I came back from Iraq in 2007. I had served in Afghanistan, in Southeast Asia, in the Horn of Africa, and then in Iraq. And I came back from Iraq after my team was hit by a suicide truck bomb. I was very fortunate. My wounds were minor, but a lot of guys were hurt far worse than I was. And so when I came home, I went and I visited at Bethesda at the Naval Hospital, visited with some recently returned wounded Marines, and every single one of them says to you, if you ask them, what do you want to do when you recover? They all say, I want to go back to my unit.
Yeah.
Now, the harsh reality was for a lot of those men and women was that they were not going to be able to return to their unit. But they still wanted to find a way to continue to serve. So when I came back from the SEAL teams, I started the Mission Continues, and I ran that from 2007 till 2015.
The mission continues.
And that was a beautiful, beautiful chapter in my life, helping really reorient the way the country was thinking about veterans. At the time, people were thinking about wounded and disabled veterans as charity cases.
We had those little yellow ribbons everywhere.
Yeah, and the yellow ribbons were kind, but there was this sensibility that somebody who came back who was wounded, that we wanted to give them free movie tickets and free blankets and free vacations, instead of recognizing that they still had so much more to offer. And when the world starts to see very capable warriors as charity cases, it can really hurt their own mentality. It's not actually helpful.
I would imagine it being like somebody who is retired and has lived such a beautiful life and has so much capability and has so much wisdom. And then they're like, okay, here's your Jello. And you're just like, I am such a capable person. I just lived a 90-year life. Like, you wouldn't even understand, son. And they're like, okay, let me tuck you into bed. They're like, no, inside, right? Internally, their body might not be able to physically do these things, but internally their spirit is still so loud.
It's a huge problem in our society that you find. So we experienced it with wounded and disabled veterans. So we experienced it with wounded and disabled veterans who needed to find a way to come back to continue to live a life of service. It's true with professional athletes who really struggle when they make a transition. There's lots of struggles there, and people think, "Oh God, they made so much money." This a lot of times their entire life was built around this identity of being a professional athlete, and they can struggle just like a veteran whose life was built around being in the military can struggle. We see it with ex-convicts who've come back and they're trying to return as citizens and they're trying to build a new identity, and they've got people who are looking at them and one like, that was 20 years ago. And they're trying to build a new
and
sense.
that's unfortunate too, because
And
I think that's a really beautiful point. Just
please, yeah.
sidewine, as to not hold somebody to who they once were,
Right.
but to hold them to who they're able to become. Because I am not who I was once,
Right.
16. If somebody who met me when I was 23 came to me and was like, "Oh, you're still such and such," I'd be like, "Friend, like, I don't even know that person anymore. Like, that person is dead." Like, and so to give people an opportunity to actually step into the next phase of life, that it continues to flow, it continues to move. It's not a stagnant place. It doesn't just stay the same.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully, if someone's growing, they should be a very different person at 30 than they were at 20.
Yes.
They should be a very different person at 40 than they were at 30, and a very different person at 50 than they were at 30. Some people don't change a lot. But I think that life offers us so much, that there are so many opportunities for us to grow.
Yeah. I mean, it is an opportunity. It is a gift to grow. It is a gift to be able to change. It is a gift to not stay the same.
Right.
Because, man, I didn't like me. I don't want to still not like me. I love me now.
Right.
I'm so good with me.
Right.
And I would not go back. I wouldn't change that for the world.
Yes.
And to be held accountable to that person is just like, it's almost unfair. It's almost cruel to say, like, this is all you'll ever be, and this is because you were once this person. It's like,
Yeah. What you find is,
learn.
again, it's
We
the
can
same thing
learn.
with critics. You find this with a lot of folks who tend towards that kind of world, whether they're journalists or critics or just people who are very negative. What they're usually expressing is their own dissatisfaction with their own lives. You cannot express an opinion without expressing your own sense for yourself.
Because you're projecting something that you can only recognize.
Well, the
because
people
it's
the people
something-
who are constantly negative about others,
Yeah.
like this is, if you've ever met them, like you have a sense for how they feel about themselves. So we do have the opportunity in our life when people want to hold us back. We can either choose to be held back, or we can move forward.
And so
obviously
that would-
we've chosen to move forward.
I've, through a lot of thick forest, yes, made it through the other side.
Yeah.
And so the mission continued on my own end. I
Yes.
think that I had no purpose at one point. I just didn't really know where I was going. I had always gone the route that I was going to be in the Air Force. Since I was 12 years old, I had already known that was going to make me think. I knew how to fly a plane before I knew how to drive a car.
Right.
I was so certain
Yes.
I was going to go in the Air Force. And my freshman year, I get in there. I ended up, my nervous system completely shut down. Doctors still do not know exactly what happened, but I ended up off and on paralyzed for a period of 3 years.
Wow.
And so I was not able to fulfill that, but then I still had this big drive. And so that mission continues. I mean, even for those who just, who have seen it and may have been injured and come back, but it's just more so like an internal spirit of a mission, of a warrior, of somebody who knows what they can provide and wants to actually provide that. And for you to give them a platform in which they could put that outlet, I mean, that must have just been so beautiful for them to have an opportunity to still show up entirely as themselves, not diminished in any way, or not quieted, not put in the corner and like, okay,
they could show
enjoy
up
your
as
rocking chair.
their new self,
Yeah.
and recognize that they still had so much more to give, and there was another chapter there. And yes, it was really beautiful work.
Yeah.
And I'm really proud of it.
And so that inspired you to, how did your platform begin?
Yeah, so I was doing that work, and I was living in my home state of Missouri, and I was sad when I looked around at Missouri, right? It's just like you kind of look at people and you see their tremendous potential. Like I looked at the state of Missouri and I thought, like, gosh, like we have so much potential that we're not living up to.
Mm-hmm.
And, perennially ranked towards the bottom in education, economics. People knew Missouri because of the Ferguson riots and the big anti-police movement that all started in Missouri. And I saw all of these things that were wrong, and I felt very much like I could make a difference. And, like the kid who went to China, I perhaps did so with some naivete.
Yeah.
But, I ran, and I didn't take a single dollar from lobbyists. We had so many veterans who were supportive that we had literally thousands of volunteers all over the state, and ran this campaign where, in the Republican primary, I was running against the sitting lieutenant governor, a centimillionaire who'd formerly run for the Senate, and the first female Speaker of the House, all of whom had broad statewide appeal and had been in Missouri politics for a long time. I obviously hadn't been in at all. In the initial polling, when I was first in, I was polling at 2%, and that was with a margin of error of 4.5%. So we might have actually been negative.
Yeah. Negative 2.5%.
So
sorry, I shouldn't be laughing.
Yeah, no, but that's where we're at.
I'm laughing because of like the stark difference, and like this is the begin again mission. Okay,
Yes.
like when you begin,
When you're at negative 2.5%, I'm with you.
and
There's
you
hope.
literally think, right, like
Yeah.
you would think, oh, well, this person has a governorship and he just knew he was going to rock it from the very beginning. And like, it probably really went well for him. And like in people's minds, they could just create that, just seeing it from a newscast, right? And here you are, you're like, yeah, when we actually started, it was...
Well, it's one of the things that's so good about podcasts, and it's also one of the things that's so good for people about reading quality biographies, is that when you read a really quality biography, you realize that like every hero suffers.
Mm-hmm.
Every hero suffers. Every great achievement is hard. And
you just make it look easy, and that's the art.
well, I don't even know if they make it look easy. Once you really understand, like sometimes they might look easy.
Yeah.
But what does happen is that now, especially with social media, people want to package the image of success and tell you, if you want perfect abs, if you want a perfect body, if you want a perfect life, if you want a perfect mentality, all you need to do is do these 3 simple tricks and send me $5.99 or whatever it is, right?
Yeah, and it's funny because there's like the realistic, the Instagram versus reality videos, or like they'll show you the closet and it's like the one corner of the closet, and then they'll pan over to the rest of the house, and you're like, yeah, you're only just getting a small snippet of what the reality of this looks like.
Yes, yeah. Like, look, there's challenges for everybody, and so yes, it was a very, very challenging race, but I had a sense of purpose, and I had a mission, and we won. We won the Republican primary, and then I was running against our Democratic opponent. At the time, 5 of the 6 offices in Missouri, statewide offices, were held by Democrats, and we were running against this sitting attorney general, who had at the time like $11 million when the primaries finished. We had 0. The primaries in Missouri finish in August, and then the main election is in November, so it's not a lot of time. And no one thought that we could win. No one thought that, I think it was 11 or maybe it was even $12 million down. We're down in the polling, down in the money. We didn't have a lot of time. But again, we came back and we won. We won in a really powerful way. And then we actually changed the state.
Yeah. That's so incredible. I mean, you did a lot of good work in your governorship.
Thank you. Yes.
We will have a guest who Eric was able to introduce us to, and I'm super, super excited to have.
Yeah, you're going to have Judy Henderson on your podcast later.
Yeah.
Judy was the first woman whose sentence I commuted as governor. She was wrongly convicted of a murder. And I commuted her sentence and later pardoned her.
Yeah.
And she's become a great friend.
Yeah.
And she's actually coming to launch her book in Austin. So I'm very grateful to you, Evie, for having her on your podcast.
I'm super excited. Yeah. And
sharing her story with all of your listeners.
It is one of many great, wonderful things that I think that you were able to accomplish
Yes.
in that pursuit. And I think that some people might have seen that 2% and been disheartened and maybe even stepped back, right? But you didn't. And you
No, we did, and we
through.
kept. And look, as governor, I also did everything that I thought was right to do. And we ended all gifts from lobbyists. We closed the revolving door between lobbyists and the executive branch. We ended over $150 million in theft from political insiders that they were stealing from the people of Missouri. We put an end to riots in Missouri. We cut taxes. We opened businesses. For the first time in a generation, we fully funded education. Like, we just did thing after thing after thing. We did it in the right way, and we did it for the people. And that's what, in fact, made us an enemy of the political insiders, who then, as you know, ended up launching a fraudulent campaign to attack me, falsely charge me, create a giant media circus around all of it. And we, look, it's beautiful. Now we've been vindicated. The people who came after me were actually charged with 8 felonies for perjury and evidence tampering. We've been vindicated, but it took a while for that to happen. And to your point about the hardship, anything great is going to lead to hate. It's going to lead to hardship. But there's a way out.
And I love that you brought that up because, like I said, like there are going to be people who try to tear you down.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter how high you go. There's always going to be somebody who's going to try to pull you back. It's kind of the crab trap.
Yes.
Right. And if you don't know about the crab trap, crabs are easily able to escape a crab trap, but the other crabs will pull them back down into the crab trap. So to be able to escape it is one thing, but to walk the way that you walked, because as you said, there was a political circus. There was something that came up that I feel like when I met you, I have a very good gut. I can say I have very good instincts. And I'm not going to say everybody's perfect. I wouldn't say that everybody's without flaw. I would say that you had a sense of self. And I think that just exploring who you are as a person, whether you're a governor or not, does not make that a right or wrong thing. It is quite literally, you are still just a person, right? And you have every right to be curious about whatever it is that's in your own world. This is your life. There's nobody who can stipulate or say, like, this is how you should or shouldn't live your life. Go live your own life and then come back and tell me, like, advise me about mine, right?
Right.
And because so very few people are actually out there living their own lives, they have so much time to tell other people how they should live theirs.
Right.
And you're in this boat where you have a hard-fought won governorship. You are still a human person who has any kind of like exploration. That adventure in you is still very much alive.
Yeah.
And for that to have been twisted in such a way, I think I saw through it very quickly because I saw you, I met you, I got to know you, we became friends. Yeah. And then I never really go out of my way to go to a social media, anything.
Right.
And then I did a little research and I was like, wow, this just doesn't add up to who I know, who's in front of me. Like it was kind of like laughable to the point in which this person who did try to destroy you was like in the affidavit even like said, hey, like I gave full permission to this person to be in a position where we could explore life together.
Well, she look, what the brief story is, we had a George Soros funded prosecutor who hired a corrupt former FBI agent to create a false case against me. They brought a woman forward whose family they paid $120,000 in cash. She later admitted that she remembered her accusations against me. She said she remembered them through a dream. Okay. So the whole thing is, now it's absurd, but when you're living it through hell. Yeah. And now, yes, the prosecutor was convicted of a felony. Yes, the corrupt former FBI agent was charged with 7 felonies. The prosecutor was reprimanded by the Supreme Court. The woman admitted that she remembered her accusations through a dream, and they admitted that they took $120,000 in cash. But all of those things have only come out years later. When we're going through it, you're living through hell. And what you see even today, you talk about negativity, is that like that the journalists have no sense of decency about actually going back and writing stories to say we were wrong.
Yeah. And so for our
Yeah.
listeners, Eric was unfortunately attacked in this way with a woman who came and accused him of certain actions that were not true in any way. And it cost him his governorship.
Yeah.
And so it
Well, I'll
was,
say this, I even think of it differently now.
yeah,
I say, like, yes, I resigned for my boys.
yeah,
And it actually, and at the time, and I probably would have, if you would have told me this in 2018, I probably would have punched myself in the face, okay? But it actually, like, has been so beautiful.
yeah.
And has given me and helped me to create a tremendous life that is full of love, it's full of adventure, it's full of great friendships, opportunities to continue to make an impact. And I think it's also put me in a position of so much more internal, personal power
Yes.
as well.
Yes.
And that's been beautiful.
Because, I mean, I could just imagine. I mean, it's not, like you said, all these women or all these people who played their role in that have since, it's come to light. But the damage was done. The reputation was put on the table. And it's really at this point, I think, really great for our listeners to understand that, like, there are people who will try to take you down, but Eric is still here. Eric is like, okay, great. Like, it's one of those that people are going to think what they want to think. And the people who think negatively about you based on something that they heard and what they actually know about you, it's a completely different world.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like one of these liberating moments in which whatever somebody has negatively to say, it's like, well, they can continue thinking that because that's on them. That's almost their loss at this point. And those who actually know me are my people.
Yes.
Those are the people who are in my corner, who are going to support me. And that kind of just translates into life in general. With you is a very extreme platform. But I think that a lot of people have these situations in micro senses of like communities, in workplaces, right? Because for myself specifically, there was an event in which I like went to a community. And this person actually did try to come and make their presence known in my life. And I was very much not receptive to it. And by saying that I was not receptive to this person's advances, I was removed from the community. I was ostracized from the community. And my integrity was questioned. They even had me pull out my ID to say, like, we don't think that you are the age that you say that you are. We don't think your business is legitimate. I was like, okay, like it was so stark difference because I'm in my mind thinking like I'm doing the right thing. I'm bringing this up in the right way. And so it can play out in a minor scale. This doesn't have to just apply to governorship and all of those forms. It is that there are going to be people left and right in our worlds. And a lot of times it ends up being that it is a gift because I was removed from that community. It was a protection. It was a beautiful redirection because then I wasn't around those energies anymore.
Yeah.
And then since then, every single person who has been involved in that group has either also been kicked out of the community or has come to me and said, I didn't like that how it was handled. I apologize. Like, that's not how it should have been done. Even the person who made the advances.
Wow.
And so this is applicable. This is, on a grand scale, I think politicians, it's so much more common. We have those smear campaigns, like that's not new news. Like it's been around for years.
Happens. The kids do this in elementary school.
Yes,
exactly.
exactly.
It's part of human life.
And so this is something that we're going to run into in the workplace. This is something that, you might say the wrong thing in a meeting and other people might not agree with you. And then there are people talking behind your back, but it's not about the people who are talking about you behind your back. It is about who you know yourself to be and to stay true to that in every way, shape, and form. And the part of staying in your integrity whenever you're working along your purpose is that whenever somebody comes up with something like this, although it is disappointing, although it can be heartbreaking, I mean, I lost all of my community at that time who I thought of as friends. It's also such a beautiful opportunity to say, like, regardless of what I lost, I know what I did was right. And nobody can take that away from you.
Right.
When you're actually in your integrity and your purpose, because the only time that you feel like you actually need to fight that level of stupidity in a manner is whenever you have actually done something wrong, right? And then you're trying to cover it up. And so not having to cover it up, not having anything to be ashamed of, not having any guilt behind it, and just being like, well, you can take it as it is. Take everything with a grain of salt, because we will never know the true reality of what actually happened behind the scenes in any way, shape, or form, but you will. And that's everything.
Yes. Yes. I agree.
And I think that that's beautiful, because you have obviously risen above.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you have. And then, like I said, you have to find a way to turn it into a gift. The only acceptable answer is to find a way to turn it into the best thing that could have ever happened.
It was, and it is. Yeah. And look at you, you're in Austin now.
Yeah, having a great time. Yeah.
And now you are an author. So you've put a lot of that mindset and the experience and the wisdom.
I think there are 4 books that have been published. There's another one on the way. I'll be happy to come back for another podcast when we launch that one. But yeah, it's the books are Resilience, The Heart and the Fist, The Warrior's Heart and Strength and Compassion. And people can find them at a bookstore or on or at Barnes and Noble or Amazon if they're interested. I'm really proud of them, and I've really enjoyed having them out.
Yeah. And do you feel like that's where your calling is? So whenever it comes to the mission continues, you obviously have given so much and made such great impact. We have our humanitarian. We are boxers and champions. We have PhDs going on. We're, rocking the governorship. We let that go with a beautiful, graceful exhale. We're on to becoming a really phenomenal father. We have authors, books coming out. And so what's next for Eric? Because I feel like you've covered just so much ground.
Thank you, Evie. I really appreciate that. And I'm in a season of real openness right now. So I am continuing to write, and I've got another book, which, as I said, maybe will come out later this year. But, I'm really open. I think there are lots of opportunities that are kind of coming my way. Some of them might be in public service again. Some of them might be some of them are in the private sector, which I've enjoyed. I'm having an absolutely incredible time with my boys. We just came back from Iceland for spring break and did all of these insane adventures. We were dog sledding and glacier walking and waterfall hiking, and so we just had a fantastic time. So I feel really, really good about where I'm at right now.
Yeah, and sometimes we don't need to know exactly what's next, right?
You have to
enjoying the present.
We get to be open. We get to be really open to what's happening. Yeah.
And enjoying this present moment is sometimes just enough, and saying like, we've already come so far, and this is just a beautiful state to be in now. Like
100%. Well, and it is. Look, sometimes you're at this place where, to kind of bring this all full circle, where it's time to begin again. And I feel like I'm at that place in my life where, like, this is a real moment of beginning again.
Yeah.
And I feel like, you go through heroes' journeys in your life, and you go through these different cycles. And I really feel like I've come through this last cycle, and really in this last book been able to capture a lot of the wisdom that came from my experience as and after being governor, kind of wrap that up, package it as a gift for the world, and now it's time for the next journey. So I will be beginning again, and I'm very grateful to you for having me on the podcast.
And again,
today.
and
Thank
again,
you so much.
and again.
Yes.
We still have like 30 minutes.
Okay, great.
I'll cut that out, but
Sure.
we've got time to just chill and hang out. And
great.
And I'm kind of curious too, because with the amount of, I wouldn't say like trauma, but like with the amount of life that you have gone through, I am curious what tools did you use and what helped you in those moments whenever you were being wrongly accused of certain things, whenever your governorship that you had just worked so hard for, to get to this point of being like, oh, I'm actually really grateful for it, because it doesn't just go from like, hey, this happened, I'm so happy I'm so happy this is happening right now. And like you mentioned, while you were going through it, it was quite difficult.
I'm talking to you 6 years later, right? So it's
exactly.
6.5, right?
Yeah.
So it takes a while.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I was very fortunate, I think, because I'd written the book Resilience, which is really a book about how people deal with pain and turn it into wisdom, how people deal with suffering and turn it into strength. And I'd written it based on what I had observed of people who lived through refugee crisis, of the girls who were lost limbs to landmines in Cambodia, kids who were refugees in Rwanda, refugees in Bosnia. So I'd seen that. I'd seen the kind of resilience that it took to make it through SEAL team training and my experience as a Navy SEAL. And I'd written rooted in a lot of the lessons that I learned from the Mission Continues. So all of those things were packaged in the resilience book, but it was almost like I'd written a time capsule for myself that I was going to later need. And so it was very helpful to have had that kind of base of thought, right? Lots of stoic thoughts about how you deal with things. And I was very fortunate. I've always been an athlete. And I think that one of the things that kept me safe and sane was staying in shape. That was hard to do, but that was important. And then ultimately, the thing that really saved my life was my kids. You know, one of the things that I observed in Bosnia in the refugee camps was that it was often the case that the people who were doing the best were parents and grandparents who had really young kids. Because if you think about a refugee camp, you think about people who've lost their homes. They've been obviously driven from their homes. Many of them have suffered tremendous violence. They've lost family members. They have no idea when their life is going to begin again. They have no idea when they're going to be able to return home. So it's a very, very hard and depressing situation. But the parents and grandparents who had very young kids, they knew that they had to wake up every day and be strong for somebody else. And it was also true for me.
It's like gave them purpose.
And it gave them purpose. And it was also true for me as a dad. Like, I had 2 little boys.
Yeah.
And they didn't care anything.
No, and they didn't know. It wasn't for them to
governor.
worry about all of that.
No.
Yeah.
But they needed me to be a great dad.
Yeah.
And so that really, really was for a long time both my primary focus and my saving grace, was to have them and to have so much fun with them, just to have real joy, right? Whether we're watching the Grinch movie at Christmas or riding their little bicycles around a lake, taking them out to a playground. Yeah. I was a dad. And so that was really helpful. Having a couple of good friends was very helpful. One of the other beautiful things about going through a tragedy like that is that, I mean, you can imagine as governor, you have thousands of people who want things from you. And then when you're no longer governor, you see who all of your real friends are. And it's actually a really beautiful process because your life gets to become very light.
That is.
And you just have all of the people who really are there for you. They weren't there for who weren't there for the ride. They weren't there for
what they could get out of you.
What they could get out of you. They're actually there for you. And that's a beautiful thing. And those people, those people I'm incredibly close to.
The ones that actually appreciate you for just who you are.
Yeah, and they love you and they're there for you and they appreciate you. So having that community of friends, having the boys, having the athleticism. And then I also think I was very, very well served by my sense for history. Because I knew from what I had read about my heroes, about an Abraham Lincoln, about a Winston Churchill, about the absolute depths of hell that they had went through in their personal lives. And it was usually the hell that they had been through actually created the strength in them, which enabled them to actually lead in the way that they ultimately were. When you read about Abraham Lincoln and the tremendous tragedies in his personal life and the loss of his children and his, struggles with his relationship with his wife, the loss of his first love, all of these things helped to create the Abraham Lincoln who was able to lead through the Civil War. Winston Churchill went through a period where he lost 3 elections in a row, where his young daughter died. He also spent a decade in the political wilderness where nobody would listen to him
No,
about Hitler.
people are not untouchable.
and 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 it was actually the hardship of both of those situations that enabled them to actually that enabled them to build the strength that they needed
Yeah.
to become great.
Yeah. Isn't that the beauty in it when you look back? I mean,
Yes.
I look back on all of the hardships and I can speak for myself, but I think that
Yes.
you might agree that like the things that I used to think destroyed me or that made me emotionally unwell
Right.
were the things that actually made me the most emotionally well
Yes.
because I had to be
Yes.
and because I understood what it meant to be the exact opposite of that and like to choose to make the changes to become a better person, to use that as the fuel, as the motivation to say no, like it's something that you look back on and you're very grateful and you say like, wow, I remember feeling so confused, so hurt, so like lost in it, and then now looking back being like, wow, that was so tough, but I'm actually proud of myself for making it through. And then,
Yes.
but like not even just making it through, but like becoming a better person through it.
Yes. Well, you also, and this is one of the key things about resilience, you made a choice. You made a choice to turn the tragedy into joy. You made a choice to turn the pain into wisdom.
Into
You made a
grateful.
choice to turn the suffering into strength. And you made a choice to do that. And a lot of people don't. A lot of people, when the hardship comes, they actually turn on themselves and they destroy themselves. And they turn to alcohol. They turn to overeating. They
The shame
turn to
cycling.
drugs. They turn to lots of things where they actually, and this is what we talked about before, when they turn on themselves, you really had the courage to make a different choice. And that's why you're where
I
you're
won't
at.
say that there weren't many years where I was destructive, though.
Yes, of
I will
course.
say that there
can
were times
happen.
where I had some self-destructive tendencies, and I was working from a shameful place, and I had moments that I wasn't proud of. And I remember thinking in college, I was like, why is it that I'm either creating myself or destroying myself? And a lot of that came from self-worth. A lot of that came from my own value that I knew of myself, that I wasn't really loving myself the way that I should have. Not because I didn't want that. It's because I didn't know how to receive that at the time. I had gone through such a situation with my family. That wasn't something that I felt like I really received as a child growing up. And so I sought that out in unhealthy ways. I sought a way to fill the void through drinking, through dating guys that I probably shouldn't have at the time.
Yeah.
And it was only ever serving to hurt me in the long run, and only more fuel for the fire of the opposite fire
Right.
to just continue destroying myself in that way. And so it is a choice. It is a choice. It is something that and I think the very beginning of my choice was to be grateful for where I was in that moment, that I had actually even just made it to that point alive, you know, and like it's something just as simple as that, of just being, when you have nothing, I mean, and I've had nothing, no car, no home, no son, no money, nothing, not even enough money to like pay for a phone bill to take a job interview. I started with negative everything. And in that moment, to just be grateful for the ability to blink. Just be grateful to take this breath.
That's really powerful. Evie.
Just be grateful to say, like, okay, as long as I have breath in my lung, that is everything I need.
Yes.
That is it. As long as I have breath in my lungs, that's everything. And it really strips away what we think we need to survive. It strips away what we think life truly is, what we think success is, because it was a success that I had even made it to that point. I was just full anomaly that I was even still alive at that point, let alone to a point of actually being grateful for my situation. When the car tow man came to tow my car, I shook his hand and said, thank you. And I'm sure at 3 a.m. in the morning for him, it was incredibly confusing of being like, thank you. Like, and to be grateful in those moments, even whenever things are being stripped away from you, recognizing that those things are actually clearing away because they no longer served you. And those things are no longer really developing who you're supposed to become. And so they've served their purpose. It sucks to lose things. But at the same time, in order to become who you want to become, you actually have to clear space, because sometimes we already have an overflowing cup with no space for more to actually come through. And so when we have that space, we're actually able to be in a place of reception. Like, anything can happen. Anything can happen. The world is quite literally your oyster. I remember being 16 and homeless, looking at my stuff in trash bags and going, okay, it's kind of an overwhelming feeling, not gonna lie, of being like, there's so many options. It's almost like you don't even know which one to choose next. But the fact that you have options, even if it's like, you know, it doesn't seem that way. When you have nothing, that's the best place to be, because you have nothing to lose. Nothing to lose. It puts you in a position of just being like, it doesn't matter what I do, because it can't get worse. At this point, as long as I have breath in my lungs, it can't get worse. And so whatever, I'm just going to do the thing that I want to do. And here we are. Like, not even, you know, a few years later, and like looking back and just really being grateful for every single hard moment that increased my capacity.
Yes.
And being able to hold space for others, and being able to recognize the things that I see in you and that resilience, and being able to not like be on par. I don't think that I'm on par with the governorship of like the level of stress that takes, and like the level of resilience it takes to become a governor. I hope to one day have, but to say that
Evie,
I can relate to somebody in a way that like I wouldn't have been able to had I not gone through all of that.
Well, you certainly can. And I think that, look, to be 16 and homeless, it's hard. It's really hard. And I'm really proud of you. I know that you are, and you should be very proud of yourself. Because again, what you've done is rare.
It's all God.
There aren't, well, and
I will say it's all God.
Well, I think that's that, you know, your faith is also part of what's helped you to arrive where you're at. And that's, you know, it's certainly one of the things that strengthened and deepened for me as I went through hell, was that sense of faith and that sense of connection. And when you have that, and you have a physical practice, and you have good friends, like you can get
overcome
through it.
Yeah.
You can get through it. And if people are listening to this right now, I think, you know, your story, Evie, is a story about beginning again. It's a story about overcoming.
Yours as well.
Yes,
and that's why
absolutely.
I just love having you on here, because you've overcome. And had we not been through what we went through, we would just not be having this conversation. We would not be able to touch the lives that we're able to touch. We would not be able to say with absolute certainty that you can go through hell and make it out on the other side.
100%.
And even if it's just a spark, you can make that spark a flame. And like, it is all a choice. It's a choice, and it doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter what path you walked. It doesn't matter what you have. It doesn't matter what your background looked like. It doesn't matter if you had wonderful parents or parents who were absent. You have a choice. It's all a choice. It's all a choice, and that's what it comes down to. And that's such a beautiful opportunity for us to really just say, you know what, like, this isn't going to be my story, and you choose what your story is going to be. And then walking in that integrity and staying the best as you know how. It's not going to be perfect. It's not going to look beautiful sometimes. It's not all going to make sense. Sometimes on the outside it's not going to make sense, and sometimes it's not going to make sense to you. But it's that walk, you know, and like the fact that we went through all of those things created this opportunity for us to now relate to one another in such a beautiful way, and hold space for those who are not quite yet there, or maybe even are there and maybe wanting to shift alignment and saying like, anything is possible, and literally anything is possible. Like, it's just up to you. And just go for it, right? Like, even if you have everything, I still have the mentality of nothing to lose and everything to gain. Because I've lost it once, and I know that I can live with so little. And I've actually found that simplicity is much nicer. It's a lot less to maintain. Now I have a yard that I have to cut, and I'm like, I have to cut, but I get to cut. And then you have things that you have to maintain, right? So it's not to say that just because you have things in your life does it make it better. Sometimes it actually complicates things. Sometimes it makes it to where you're not always in your integrity because you're afraid of losing the thing that you want, right?
Everything that you own owns a piece of you. It's impossible to own something without it owning a piece of you. It's true of a home. It's true of a television. It's true of a car. They all demand some time, some energy from you. And there is a tremendous power in simplicity.
Yeah. And then to just rise from that and know that it's not a permanent state. It's a fluid motion, and we just get to enjoy the ride.
Yes, we do. 100%.
I can't wait to hear about your next book. I'm like super excited.
I'll be excited to come back and tell you all about it when we're ready to launch it.
And I'm sure our listeners will have plenty of questions for you.
Yes.
And so I would like to share with you guys that, like I've always close out, I want you to know that you are supported. You are loved. There are people here who want the best for you, who will guide you in some way. We have resources, regardless if it's health, wealth, business, governorship, politics. We have people in your corner, and you don't have to do this alone. We get to support each other through these changing seasons of life. And it's such a beautiful thing to walk in community, to have this opportunity for us to come together and really honor one another's journey. And that, Eric is here. If you have any questions, Eric, where can they find you?
The best place is actually at my website, ericgreitens.com. So it's EricGreitens.com, ericgreitens.com.
And we'll put that down below as well.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah. And so if you have any questions, if you need any advice, if you are looking for support, if you are curious about Eric's books, or just, want somebody to say hey to and say thank you so much for even being on the show, please reach out and just, we're all here, and we're grateful for you who are listening and who have gotten to this point in our podcast to show up and even be here with us, because part of that is our purpose, right? Without you listeners who are in the audience, it would be kind of pointless because we would just be talking into like microphones.
Well, we're having fun. We could
have had this conversation over coffee, but
we're having fun.
But it was fun. And so, but now because you are here and you've made it to this point in our podcast, that is a part of it. We aren't doing this alone either. It's not because we are above or below anyone. We are very much walking through the trenches together. And we get to enjoy the meadows together, and we get to enjoy the beach and the sand and build the sandcastle and know that, it's not permanent, and we just get to enjoy it in the meantime.
Well, thank you so much for having me on, Evie. I really appreciate it.
So thankful that you were able to join us. And do you have any last words that you would like to impart on our?
Well, I would just say I really admire what you've done with your life, and I also really admire what you're doing with the podcast. And I love the idea of beginning again. I think it is a fantastic message to everybody who's listening today. And I would just remind everybody that it doesn't need to be a Herculean effort, that beginning again can begin again with one strong, clear breath. Beginning again usually just means that you try and do one thing today that you had trouble doing yesterday. And if you do that, you build that habit of success, you build the habit of courage. You'll look back and you'll find that you did indeed begin again. So thank you again so much for having me, Evie.
I love that. And looking back is really the important part, because you realize how far you've actually come. It's so hard to see that progress sometimes on the day-to-day. But whenever you go back and you're like, man, just a year ago, I'm just not the same person that I once was. And so thank you, Eric. And for my listeners, as always, I encourage you, please just be bold, be courageous, have the courage. And even if it's a small moment, like Eric said, it does not have to be Herculean. It is just one small moment, and that can make all the difference. It's just the beginning. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Evie.
Toodles.